Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm your host, Jed Brown, founder of Low Season Traveller, and this week we're continuing our podcast series on low season travel in the African continent. Most of us are not as well travelled in Africa as we are in other regions of the world, and that includes me. Yet, Africa offers some of the most incredible, awe-inspiring and breathtaking travel experiences available in our world. As a continent, Africa experiences the tiniest fraction of incoming tourists compared to Europe, the Americas, Asia and Australasia. And yet, it's Africa which has some of the richest cultural heritage, wildlife, flora and fauna found anywhere on Earth. And so, as we seek experiences away from the crowds, join us as we continue our journey to some of the least visited destinations in the world and learn just why Africa should never be overlooked when we consider our travel plans. In this third episode, we're joined by our regular guest, Warren Pearson, who's a specialist naturalist guide, an explorer, a photographer, a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, and has completed projects with Animal Planet and National Geographic, among many others. In this episode, we catch up with Warren and Roo Oosthuizen, who's the founder of Africa Roam, to learn more about Namibia during the low season months. As the world's second least densely populated country, Namibia has a lot of space. In fact, there aren't many destinations which can match its ability to avoid any vague form of crowds. Here you'll find the biggest skies with the brightest stars, mountainous sand dunes the size of London's Shard, coastal shores which are entirely deserted, except of course for seals, a lot of seals, silent, meandering rivers and fascinating tribal culture. If you don't know much about Namibia, prepare to be utterly won over by a destination which by rights should be the top of your wish list for the ultimate low season destination. Enjoy.
Hi everyone. Proudly African and of course South African, and extremely thrilled to join you today because I think Namibia is, apart from South Africa, probably the country that I absolutely I'm thrilled to show people from around the world, introduce the country to people from around the world to visit. It is a scenic splendor and it is so interesting. Warren and I have been friends for a few years and we both share a love for nature, and found a lovely collaboration to share our joy in giving a bit of our knowledge to the world. And really thrilled to be with you today.
Well, we're delighted to have you with us as well, and I know how passionate you are about Namibia in particular. Warren, great to have you with us again this week. How have you been this past week?
Yeah, Jed, good to be back here. Thank you. I've had a fantastic week, thanks.
Good.
Beautiful sunshine outside. It's warm. Went for a run this morning and loving low season in
That's low season in Southern Africa, I guess, right?
That's fantastic. It's beautiful.
It's better than high season in the UK, I can tell you that for sure. So we're going over to Namibia today. In the sort of the research, you very kindly sent me over some photographs, Warren, and some videos which were absolutely fantastic. I'm super excited about having a look as to what Namibia offers during the low season. It's clear to me that it's a really, really special destination, and it's probably one which I think it's fair to say it's in some ways it is sometimes overlooked by other destinations in Africa. And from the images that you've shared with me, I think it's definitely overlooked and it's not appreciated enough. So let's get into it. Give us a bit of an introduction, if you will, Warren. First off, to Namibia, to the country that we're talking about this week.
Thanks, Jed. I normally try and explain Namibia in a sense that it's big sky country. It's scenic. It's and there's a few things that also say that a lot of people don't really understand about Namibia and what it holds that is so special. And just a few things which I'm pretty sure we're going to cover today. But if you think it's got one of the oldest deserts actually the oldest desert in the world, the Namib Desert. It has the second largest canyon in the world after the Grand Canyon in the US. It's got the highest sand dunes in the world. Now, if you just from a sort of a comparison, if you take the Shard in London, that's 310 meters tall, and we're talking the highest sand dune in the world is 383 meters tall. So there's so much about Namibia, and Rue and I were talking about this beforehand. We an hour isn't long enough. We could literally spend 2-3 hours here talking about all the wonders. It's got ghost towns, it's got shipwrecks, it's got a pretty spectacular wildlife in certain areas that. It's unlike your typical safari destinations. You got to have that adventurous spirit. You got to have that patience. But you can see some pretty mind-blowing animals if you know where to go and you know how to find them. Yeah. So and then there's the culture. You go look at the tribes up north on the border with Angola, the Himba. You look at the history of Namibia being a German colony when Africa was divided up by Europe. There's just so much to talk about. I love it. It's a country that definitely is not sold enough. A lot of people don't understand it, and I think a lot of people sell it incorrectly. So yeah, I love it. It's a beautiful place.
Well, let's get all of that put right in the hour that we've got, and let's crack on our voyage of discovery. You very kindly sent us a map in. Just to sort of show us about the area that we're talking about. So you can see it here. This is Namibia. Talk us through it, Warren. It's bordering Botswana, Angola. Is it bordering Zambia and Zimbabwe as well?
Yeah, it actually has a very small border with Zimbabwe and Zambia, and that point is quite a unique point. It's where 4 countries come together. That being Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Namibia. But yeah, it's, excuse me, it sits on the southwestern edge of Africa. It's a massive country, and it's the least densely populated country, or second least densely populated country in the world. It has a population of about 2.6 million people. And it's a very special. And if you're looking at that map, it's quite an interesting, because I think if people are looking at that map, you'll see that little slither that goes across the very top of Botswana. It's almost like an arm reaching out, or as some people would call a panhandle. It's like a handle of a big, deep pan. And there's a very interesting story about that, and that goes back to when Germany still colonized then German West Africa, and they wanted a trade route through to the Indian Ocean to the east. And they spoke to the British, who at the time were in control of current-day Zimbabwe and Zambia. And they thought, hang on, they've heard about this massive river called the Zambezi that they wanted to put their steamboats onto and be able to travel from west coast of Africa through land, basically on this river system, to east coast. And at that time, Germany controlled German East Africa, which is current-day Tanzania. And the British thought about this, and because it was a protectorate. Botswana was a British protectorate at the time. And Germany asked them, well, listen, can we have this little slither of land? And the British came back and said, no problem, but we want Zanzibar, the island of Zanzibar, which was under German control. Yeah. And it was quite interesting because I think the Germans thought they got away with a lot more than what the British actually wanted. But probably about 10 years prior to this agreement happening, Germans did not know that David Livingstone had founded the Victoria Falls. So there was this massive, huge waterfall on this Zambezi River. And where the term literally goes, where the British sold the Germans down the river. That's pretty much where that little slither comes from, because it's a very common question with a lot of people when they do visit Namibia is why does that country look like that?
It does seem to just sort of stand out, and at least now we know the reason why. You also sent us another image. Let me get it up here, which again I thought was pretty telling. And it just shows the sheer. You were saying there it's the second least densely populated country in the world, and it's just interesting to see the size of it, because again, especially for Northern Europeans, we're not as familiar with the different sizes of the countries within Southern Africa. But when you overlay it onto Europe, it's not a small country, is it?
It's not a small country at all, and I think that's. I mean, I'm a map person, and I really love maps, and to be able to explain Africa to a lot of people around the world, and exactly how big Africa is, and actually how many countries around the world could actually fit into Africa. And you look at that, and that just, I mean, to me, that should blow people's minds away. You look at 2.6 million people in that space, and you think of how many people are living in Europe. It sort of puts things into perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So let's get straight on to then. Now we know the size of it. We know a little bit of an overview to the land that is Namibia. Let's go into now. When are the low seasons, and why is it a great time? Why is it a great time to go, and what can we experience there?
Low season is. People like to go in specific months. I like to go, well, it's the Southern Hemisphere summer. Mm-hmm. And that would be any time from, I'd say, November through to March, April, pushing. The temperatures in Namibia particularly get exceptionally warm and hot. But, on top of that, you get these spectacular thunderstorms that sort of come in your late afternoon. And to be on a massive open area and that Namibia has, and you see these thunderstorms coming in with lightning, and the ground turns green, the wildflowers come up. So typically low season is Southern Hemisphere summer.
Yeah. So right now is the low season, of course, then for Namibia.
No. So we're in our winter at the moment.
Oh God, yeah. I'm thinking
we're softer out.
I want that mind on the summer for the Northern Hemisphere. Okay, so we've got a few months to plan our trips.
You do, and it's a beautiful place.
Perfect. Well, what we've got as well is let's get up on the screen. We've got some images to sort of help us on this sort of journey of discovery. So let's, if you could, both of you, talk us through some of these kind of highlights. And again, just sort of stressing for everybody at home that we can't do justice to this wonderful country in just 1 hour. But you've picked out some highlights for us. So again, if you could sort of talk us through these, that would be great. One of the things that you wanted to talk about, I know, was the Namibian night skies. So Roo, do you want to talk to us about? You're quite passionate about the Namibian night skies, I know, aren't you?
Well, I think that one of the most astonishing features of going to Namibia. Sorry, we're trying to get our camera focused here. I think one of the most astonishing features of going to Namibia is the fact that there's almost no light pollution. And so anyone that knows, the desert environment, when you kind of sit there at night and you have absolute darkness and these vast skies with this incredible, the Milky Way, and just staring up, you kind of really get interested in the night sky. And it's a photographer's dream. Any photographer that's interested in that kind of feature, I mean, you just can't almost believe your eyes. And there's a very special constellation that we have in the Southern Hemisphere called the Southern Cross. And I've asked our resident expert, Warren Pearson, to go into explaining this very special constellation, how to find it in the sky, and then how to utilize it in order to find due south. So I'm going to ask Warren to guide us through that.
Yep.
Jed, yeah, exactly. I mean, what Drew is, and I'll sort of mimic it. It's from a stargazing perspective, it is absolutely out of this world. And before I go into the Southern Cross, what's quite interesting is that a certain section of Namibia, known as the Namib Naukluft or the Namib Rand, has been proclaimed what's known as a dark sky reserve. So it's an international body that sort of goes around the world looking for dark sky reserves, and it's they're protected. If you have a safari lodge or accommodation in that area, they have to have certain lighting. It has to face downwards. It has to be red lighted. And it's 99% of these places all have resident astronomers. So when you do go there, you don't have to try and guess it and try and figure it out for yourself. They have people and experts on the ground that will definitely sort of and want to tell people all about it. But as Rue says, one of the probably the most sort of interesting points of the southern sky, in the northern hemisphere, it's very easy. You have the North Star to find where your direction is and to find north. In the southern hemisphere, it's a little bit more difficult. We don't have a southern star. We have the Southern Cross. And for centuries, sailors have used the Southern Cross to find their way, to figure out which direction south is. And it's not as easy as it will sound, because if you look at the diagram that you've got there showing the Southern Cross and the two pointers, you need to find the Southern Cross first. And it doesn't really look too much like a cross, often because it's sitting on its side. And it looks more like a kite flying. And there is another constellation called the False Cross, and a lot of people make the mistake with the False Cross and the Southern Cross. But with the Southern Cross, you will always have two stars, and that's called the pointers, and that's Alpha Centauri and Beta Centauri. Now, the pointers, once again, mislead a lot of people. They think it points south. They don't. You need to use the pointers in conjunction with the Southern Cross to find the celestial South Pole. And the way that you do that, as in the diagram, you take the longitudinal axis of the Southern Cross. So from the top down to the bottom, and you draw a straight line. You keep that imaginary line in your brain. Then you take the two pointers, you bisect them in a 90-degree line out, and you draw a line out. Now, where those two lines from the Southern Cross and from the pointers join and meet, that is the South Celestial Pole. From that point, straight line down to Earth, that is south. And that's the easiest way to find south in the Southern Hemisphere. There are a few other ways. You have the clouds of Magellan, or the Magellanic Clouds, two other galaxies actually that you can see with the naked eye, and they're cluster galaxies. And they always typically hang over the tip of southern Africa as well. So if you can't find exact south by using the Southern Cross, or the Southern Cross is clouded over, for example, and any other reason, but there are a few other ways. But the Southern Cross is a fantastic way to orientate yourself when you're in the Southern Hemisphere.
I love that. And Namibia, I mean, obviously Namibia is an incredible place for for actually watching the sky at night. Is that actually as a result of the low population, I guess, that you've got these vast empty spaces and there's nothing there?
Exactly. It's so densely unpopulated. It's just, I forget the statistic, but it's probably like one person within a couple 100 kilometers of each other if you had to spread them out across the earth, across the country of Namibia. But yeah, it's if you look at the inhospitable regions of Namibia, and that being the Namib Desert, that's being the Namib around portions of the Kalahari, which sort of get into the eastern section of Namibia, that doesn't really allow for much human habitation. You have the capital, Windhoek, which is pretty much in the middle, and a few other smaller towns around, but they don't give off the light pollution that you would get anywhere else in the world, let alone in Africa.
Yeah, well, put it this way, I think around here, myself and my family, we love looking at the sky at night. I don't think we've ever seen the Milky Way. I don't think we've ever seen actually quite a lot. But like you say, it's because of the sheer light pollution. But Rue, you were telling me earlier on as well that a lot of the camps that you work with in Namibia as well, they have their resident astronomers, and they really do delight in talking to the guests and bringing the night sky to life for those guys as well, right?
Yes, I think that it is just inevitable that if you visit Namibia and you are with people that are so extremely well versed in the night sky of the Southern Hemisphere, the enthusiasm, you just can't help but get interested. And you just have to once in your life stand under the southern sky and look up, and it's an enthralling experience, and you want to understand, what's out there. I mean, we all want to understand the bigger picture, and the lodges are incredible, and it's a shout out to them as well for kind of having the equipment available to guests to be able to enjoy this fascinating exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Jed,
yeah.
Sorry, it's one thing which it's a little sort of nice little trivial pursuit sort of question.
Oh yeah, I love this. Go on.
Fact. And it's quite interesting because you can only typically see this in the southern hemisphere, and it's when people ask how many galaxies can you see with the naked eye, and most people go, well, no, it's just one. And I just, as I spoke to but previously, there's 2 other galaxies with the naked eye that we can see. So in essence, 3 in total. If you think of a galaxy and you think of all those solar systems that are within one galaxy, it's pretty mind-blowing. And I think most people walk away from looking up with a very sore neck, but with an exceptional appreciation of how small we actually are in this bigger scheme of things.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't be standing up and getting a sore neck. I'd be lying down and just
that is
staring at it in awe. I love that. So that's another great photo, which just gives a really good impression of just the sheer breadth of the stars that you can see in the night sky there. At Dead Vlei, is it? Dead Vlei?
Dead Vlei.
Dead Vlei. Gosh, you see my accent.
The marsh of death, or the
marsh of death.
Dead marsh.
That was delightful. Come on, sell it to us. The marsh of death. I love it.
It's an interest. Sorry, Jed, I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story with that, because it's a river system that actually flows from inland and actually flows west towards the ocean, but it's stopped by these massive sand dunes of Sissusvlei. So, in years where you do have huge amounts of rain, that river does flow a little bit. Those pans do fill up with a small amount of water, and that water can be there for months, years on end, even sometimes. But it's that leached salt sort of pan that's left behind, and it creates this extremely stark but beautiful flay, as we call it in the south here. It's a marsh, basically. It's a dead marsh.
Yeah, it looks incredible though, that one. And again, another image of the night sky that you can. I mean, just I've never seen as many stars in my life as I have in that photograph, I don't think. And I'm sure that's the same for many of our viewers as well. So one of the things that you highlighted to me that is one of the top things that can be done in Namibia is canoeing the Orange River. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so I have as the series will develop, I guess the guests will learn more about Warren and myself. And my background is I've been in the tourism industry for 20 years, and I started off being a guide through Africa, and adventure is my deep love. Mm-hmm. I ended up in the luxury tourism sector. As things happen in life, you don't know how you get to that point, but my deep passion is adventure and exploring. And I mean, we're so incredibly blessed living in this part of the world, because we've got everything around us. And the Orange River, which actually originates in South Africa in the Drakensberg Mountains, has a journey westward. And I think most rivers in Africa actually travels east. Mm-hmm. So it's one of the interesting aspects of this river, that it actually goes to the west, and it meanders through South Africa and then into, it actually is the border between South Africa, the northern border of South Africa, and the southern border of Namibia. And you can go on a canoeing trip You can decide if you want to do a day trip or if you want to do 2 days, two night stay, and you actually sleep on the riverbed under those stars that you've seen. And you have your expert guides taking you, down the river, and it's not rapids. It's not like the Zambezi River where you have to have a raft. It's a pretty docile kind of water that's not very strong, and there's no crocodiles, so you can actually jump out.
That was going to be my question.
Because the weather is all round pretty warm, I would say. I've been there in our summer where we get 53 centigrade, which is extremely warm. And so halfway down the river, you usually kind of swim for a very long time in the afternoons just to cool down, and then you have these amazing outdoor adventure sleepovers. So that's more for the adventurer spirited amongst us. It's not that there's no lodge.
How fit do you have to be to do one of those kind of trips? Is that really, is that for the youngers, or I mean, the people like me coming into my 50s, would I be able to do that? How
yes.
I mean I'm reasonable fitness.
Can you move your arms?
Yeah, I can move my arms just about.
Then you can go. Can you swim?
I can swim, absolutely. I'd rather do that than any sort of rafting or anything else. I get nervous by those kind of things, but I think
there's no. It's a very, very calm stretch of the river. It's absolutely, it's scenically, it is just astonishingly beautiful.
What about is the wildlife to see on your way down the river?
Birds.
Yeah.
So people that are interested in birding, I would definitely recommend this activity. And also because you're so quiet, you're on the river. It's usually 2 people in a canoe together, so you can choose who you want to canoe with. It's a very tranquil experience because there's no sound, there's no noise, and you can get close to all the aquatic birds. It's fascinating.
Sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Jed, if I may just interject at this point, it's one important thing I feel very important about Namibia and talking when we talk about Namibia and South Namibia is it's not a big animal safari wildlife destination. That for me, that's not what it is. For me, it's scenery, it's history, it's geology, it's birds. If people are interested in the wildlife aspect of it, I always combine Namibia with another African country very close to it. For example, Botswana, what we did last week, or even South Africa. And not to say there's no animals in Namibia, there's some phenomenal wildlife viewing in Namibia. But to me, the main aspect of why people want to go there or should go there is to get a holistic experience of what the country is. And we'll talk about it. We're going to talk a bit later about the Tomorrowland and the desert rhinos and desert elephants. And I know you've got a few other pictures about lions in the desert. So there is that. But, Namibia is what Rue's saying here. It's about exploring and finding these. I mean, you go down this river and it feels like you're the first people to go down this river. It's that spectacular.
It was interesting.
It's very good for social distancing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking that when we were saying that it's the second least populated country in the world, I was thinking, actually, social distancing wise, you should be safe. But what I found interesting is when I was sort of doing my own sort of research on photographs and everything else, is towards the end I was sort of thinking, actually, I haven't got a huge amount of wildlife photos here, and I know how rich Namibia is in terms of wildlife, but as you were just saying there, Warren, there is so much more, clearly so much more to Namibia than wildlife. And actually, when you're talking about photography and images, and I'm I absolutely love my images, as I think you both well know at this stage. It just surprised me how many different beautiful landscapes there are in Namibia. I mean, like I said at the outset, it's clearly a photographer's dream. When you look at all of these sort of different straight lines and the different variety of landscapes that you have, it's clearly not all about the wildlife, but also it is, as you said, Warren. It's clearly it is also incredibly rich in wildlife too.
You've hit the nail on the head there, Jed. I think it's, to me, it's a photographer's dream, and any landscape photographer around, this is a place they have to go to. It literally is a place they have to go to. And if you have the patience of being a wildlife photographer, as I said, there's some pretty spectacular wildlife sightings that you can have as well. But yeah, it's a photographer's dream.
Love it.
I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think also the kind of species that you see in Namibia is also, as Warren will explain later, it's desert adapted species. So it's completely unique and very diverse. So it's not the quintessential safari that we know, from Botswana, from Kenya, from South Africa, but certainly there's wildlife and nature. It's an incredible place for that.
Yeah, it really seems it. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. Tell me how do you pronounce it? Spitzkopper? Spitzkopper. That was close. That was close. I'm actually quite pleased with that. Spitzkopper. Tell us about Spitzkopper. This is it, I guess.
Well, I would say that, it's hard to say what your favorite places are in Namibia or in the world. So there's not one favorite place that you can have, but this is certainly one of the most special places that I've been to and that I've explored. It is, it's granite, little mountains that's about 120 million years old. And it is, when you drive from Swakopmund, which is on the coast, you drive inland, about an hour and a half's drive. And it is vast and open land. And then you hit this area where these granite crops, these little mountain peaks appear, and obviously beautifully red color. And the San people, the Bushmen, they lived here years ago. And so they have left a beautiful collection of their art, which you can, find as you explore this area. So this is also, again, something I recommend never to miss out on when you go to Namibia. But there's several ways to do it. You can fly over it. You can get a helicopter trip and fly over the scenic mountains and see it. It's also a day trip that you can take from Swakopmund. You can get an organized trip to take you out, or you can be adventurous and you can actually go and sleep out and then climb to the peak. Yeah. And I've done that. I've done the sleeping out and climbing up to the peak. For people that are into rock climbing, this is definitely one of those top destinations in the world to explore.
When we talk about the rock climbing, is it do you need a level of expertise? Do you need to be an experienced rock climber to do this?
You need a level of expertise. This is not for the beginner. So it's the guys that's pretty serious. It's isolated. There's absolutely nothing around it. So whatever you need, you also need to bring in, and it's just one of the most beautiful scenic spots in the country, and it's actually known as the Matterhorn of Namibia.
Oh wow!
I would really recommend that people try and put that into their itinerary when they visit the country.
It's it reminded me a little bit of there's parts of Phoenix and Arizona. It reminded me a little bit like that, the sort of the landscape, the arches, the granite, etc. Looks sort of similar in many ways to those kind of places, right?
It is. It's very similar to that. So if you've got anyone that's been out in the United States, enjoying that kind of environment, and wants to add out of the ordinary spot to say that they've explored and done rock climbing, then Namibia is one of those
climbers would want to add it to their list, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, and of course the stars at night. I think you had an actual photograph of the Spitzkoppe with the night sky earlier.
Yeah, earlier on it was with the arch, wasn't it?
Again, I mean, you can't get away from the night sky.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Oh, it's just stunning. So the next spot that you wanted to draw attention to was Sossusvlei. Close. Close.
You've got it.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. What is Sossusvlei?
Sossusvlei is it's an area, basically vlei, once again, like dead vlei, what we spoke about. Vlei is like a marsh. Sossusvlei, it's an area that has some of the largest sand dunes in the world around. Not the highest. The highest is actually a bit further away in Namibia, but it has some exceptionally large sand dunes. And it's just a well-known spot for a lot of people that go in there to have a look. The landscapes, the climbing the sand dunes, as you see in the picture there, is there's two big dunes, Big Mama and Big Dada, as they're appropriately called.
Nice.
It's a bit of a climb to get to the top. You're walking, as you can imagine, in some pretty soft sand to get to the top, but you're right on the edge of the eastern edge of the Namib Desert, and when you get up to those heights, the views that you get are just it's insane. You're probably in a straight line about 60 kilometers away from the coast, and that's the Atlantic coast, the Atlantic Ocean. And you're just looking into the Namib Desert, and you're looking down onto these beautiful dried up dead marshes that are around with these ancient camel thorn trees that are, if I can say, almost frozen in time. It's a very well-known spot in Namibia, and in the low season I love it because you could get that once in a lifetime rainstorm that comes through and puts the water in, and it transforms that entire area.
Yeah, I bet. I'd love to see that. Some of the images it's just breathtakingly beautiful the way the sun catches it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also the largest conservation area in Africa.
Oh, really?
The Namib National Park.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I did see somewhere, again, it was last week when I was looking into this, that Namibia is one of the very few countries that has put in environmental protection within its legal framework. I forget the exact stat. I'll have to post it up on the link when we share this out. But yeah, it looks like it sort of came across that the government in Namibia are incredibly passionate about environmental issues, and seem to be acting upon that as well. I think everybody talks the talk about being pro the environmental issues, etc. But it seemed to me from what I was reading that Namibia, the government there, really taking it seriously and acting upon that. Have you heard anything on that?
They do. They take it exceptionally seriously, and I stand to be corrected, but I think they were probably one of the first countries in Africa to ban single-use plastics.
Right.
One of the big ones for me is plastic straws, and you won't find a single plastic straw anywhere in Namibia, for example. And then they do. They rely on it's looking after their environment. They don't have much from a sustainable usage platform to work off, but what they have, they do it very well, and they utilize every aspect that they can. So, it's a country that I do hold in high esteem when it comes to when they talk about green, they actually do it.
Yeah, the sustainability, and also the fact that the country doesn't have much water resources.
Yeah.
So we in Cape Town, you probably know, 2 years ago, we had an awful scare when they thought that the dams were going to be dried up.
Yeah.
So we've become quite aware of water, how precious the resource of water is. And in Namibia, when we were children, we knew friends that had a 7-year-old son, and he saw rain for the first time when he was 7. And so these people are really they're serious about conserving what they've been given, because there's, once we destroy it, it's destroyed.
Extinct is forever. Once it's gone, it's gone. Absolutely. Some more amazing pictures there of these.
That's dead flay.
Yeah, dead flay.
That's just the contrasting images that you'll get, and that's. I mean, the photographs in this case do it justice, because that is what it can be like. You get these beautiful blue skies. You get this, the red tones of the sand, and the red is the amount of iron oxide that's actually in the sand. So it's basically rusted material that creates this redness. And as the sun moves through the sky, those sand dunes change color. Then you have this white sort of salty area of the foreground here. It truly is a spectacular place. You literally could spend all day there just oogling at the scenery around you. It's just there's so much to look at.
Yeah, absolutely stunning, stunning place. And what's that in the foreground there?
That is an oryx, commonly called down south, and sometimes in certain areas in Africa, a gemsbok.
Okay.
But yeah, for the easier way of talking, it's an oryx. Oryx antelope.
Yeah.
They are one of two truly desert adapted antelope. They have an exceptional, amazingly brilliant cooling system in their nasal cavity, or just behind their nasal cavity. So an animal like this can be standing in the heat of a 53 degrees centigrade day, and if you think of the blood in that body that would go around that body, if that temperature of that blood was at that temperature, it would kill that animal outright. But it has this cooling mechanism that cools down the blood that flows into the brain and keeps the body cool. It's an amazing animal. And it's got these very stereotyped pictures of desert scenes and open big spaces. And whenever I think of Namibia, it's probably one of the animals that I probably think of foremost. And they're truly spectacular animals.
Oh, they look beautiful. When you're talking about that, I guess. And I think you touched on it, Roo, before that. One of the things with Namibia is, it has an abundance of wildlife, as we've mentioned, but some of that wildlife has adapted to life in the desert, and that's what makes it unique. Tell us about the kind of creatures that have adapted to life in the desert, and how have they adapted to life in the desert?
Well, the first thing for me that comes to mind is that one would never expect elephants in a desert environment. So the desert elephants are famous, and I've been very lucky that I've experienced, to see that the herd, and it's phenomenal how you actually you can't imagine that these animals that everyone tells you need so much water every day to survive have found ways to survive in the desert. And they found underground rivers. They dig plants out which is very nutritious, where they get the source that they need to survive. So that for me is something that stands out. And then, of course, the beautiful black rhino that we find across the Damaraland, and these bushes, which is actually, Warren, you can help me with this, but I think the euphorbia bushes are poisonous to man. But the black rhino has managed to. They can eat those, right?
Yeah.
They survive on those. It's a very typical landscape when you're in the Damaraland, when you see these euphorbia bushes, and yeah.
So yeah, the euphorbias are it's a very unique. Basically, anyone coming to Africa will look at a euphorbia, and particularly if you're from the States, you're going to look at them and say, "Oh, look at the cactus." It's a very similar looking plant for most parts of cactus and euphorbias, but the euphorbia has a cactus typically has water in it, where a euphorbia has a milky latex, and it is poisonous to us. But there are animals out there like the desert black rhino that has adapted to eating off this. So, when you talk about animals being adapted to living in these kind of conditions, there's a bunch of them. And as Rue says, it's the desert elephant, the desert black rhino, there's desert lions out there, there's giraffe, there's brown hyena, which is spectacular, jackals that live on the coast and they hunt the seals on the skeleton coast with the brown hyena. It's amazing how animals have evolved to the conditions that they're living in, and it just goes to show the resilience of a lot of these species of animals that most people would say, no, this animal you'd never find living here. Or if you go into a desert area, you go, well, what's going to live here? Nothing. Yeah. You're not going to find anything here. And if you actually just take the time and you slow down, and you know how to look for these things, you will find things. And it's not necessarily always the big animals that you're going to find. You're going to find a lot of smaller animals, and the snakes, the beetles, for example, the geckos. That to me is as exciting. And to watch how these animals, they wait for the fog to come in off the coast, and that's how they get their moisture and their water, is by sticking their legs in the air and waiting for the condensation to fall down their body and into their mouth.
Wow.
It really is. It's special. People when they go there, I try and say, spend 3 or 4 days there, because it's 2 days, even 3 days sometimes is just not enough. Slow down.
Yeah, interestingly, Etosha National Park, there's no buffalo. So the big five, as we know, the buffalo lion.
It's the big four in Namibia, then.
Pardon?
I said it's the big four in Namibia.
Yeah, but the black rhino features quite prolifically. I guess that's the upside to it. But traditionally buffalo is a water dwelling species, so they really struggle. They don't survive. They haven't adapted themselves to survive in the aridness of Namibia.
Am I right in saying that Namibia has the largest, one of the largest populations of free roaming black rhino as well?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's actually, just to be specific and maybe a bit pedantic about it, but you get black rhino, and then you get a subspecies, and the desert black rhino is a subspecies. And they've purely separated that purely because of its conditions where it lives in and its habitat. But you are correct in saying that it has one of the largest free roaming desert black rhino populations in Africa, which is phenomenal, and it has to be protected.
And we can help you to go on foot and track those rhino. It's a fascinating experience.
On foot? Is it dangerous? Is it dangerous, Rue?
Yes, but
with the black rhino, it's always dangerous.
Yes, I was expecting you to say no. Of course, it's not. It's perfectly safe.
There's ways to do things.
One of the most exhilarating experiences I think anyone can have when they come to Africa is being able to walk. And I always say, once you've got your boots dusty with the dust of Africa, you've really experienced Africa. But don't sit in a vehicle the whole time. Get out on foot, and if you're with the right people and you're with a guide that is experienced enough, and they're able to track desert black rhino, desert elephants. I know guys that have even tracked the lions on foot. It's an experience you will never ever forget. It's an exhilarating experience. You really feel where you fit into this whole bigger scheme of us humans being on this planet. And it's something that I would recommend every single person that goes to Namibia that wants to go and look for these animals. Try and get out of the vehicle and go and look on foot.
Well, I know there's no guarantees. So, Rue, at Africa Roam, you guys, you do have these kind of tours and experiences where you can, you can walk along and track the black rhinos. Is the chance of success, is it usually pretty good?
Yes, because what we do, Jed, and I think that's the important part of partnering with the people that's living in the area that you want to visit. We deal with we partner with suppliers, with people that are so extremely experienced in this kind of activity, and we do we're very concerned, or we're very pedantic about who we partner with. So you can never 100% guarantee anything in life, but we certainly know that the chances of you going out on foot, and it might not take an hour, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour, or sometimes an hour and a half, but we're pretty certain, for example, tracking black rhino, we know where to send people to go and do that activity, and we know how to do it in a safe manner. And also, like Warren says, once you're off the vehicle and you're on foot, it's again like sitting in the canoe on the Orange River. There's very little noise, and you experience the landscape and your environment in a very different manner than what you do when you're sitting in a vehicle. So while you're tracking rhino, you're also learning about the spoor, the footprints of the animals, and the little bugs and the plants. I think Namibia, surprisingly, being a desert, you wouldn't expect it, but there's an enormous amount of plant species, and very interesting plants at that. So yeah.
Very good. We've got on the picture there a picture of a book, and you mentioned this, Rue, at the outset, The Sheltering Desert. Tell us about this book, or yourself or Warren, and why you recommend that people would read this book before traveling out to Namibia, just to get a sense of what the country is about. Why is this book important?
It was a book that was recommended to me about 15 years ago when I started traveling to Namibia. And I think for me, what the significance of this book is, it teaches you about the history of Namibia. It's about two geologists that went and sheltered for 2.5 years in a part of the southern Namib called the Quisep Canyon, because of the Second World War that broke out. They were pacifists, and they were not interested to be part of the war, and they were German. So it was a bit of an issue. They faced jail time because you couldn't prove that you weren't a Nazi. And of course, in this time in Southern Africa, we were on the Allied side. So and because South Africa was controlling Namibia, or Southwest Africa as it was known then. So these two men had almost no resources but the land in which they were sheltering in. And they had to learn to live off the land. And it is one of those extraordinary tales of human survival, and just to use your resources to actually find your way to the next day. I don't want to tell you how it ends. I think people should go on Amazon and try and get the book. It's just
absolutely.
It's a beautiful story of human survival, and just
it is truly a spectacular book, and I'd highly recommend people get it.
It's a beautiful story.
Well, it's on my list now. I'll be downloading that from Amazon myself. Of course, it's going to make me want to travel to Namibia even more, but that's okay. It's probably good to get a sample of it. Next on our tour, the Kunene River. Close?
Kunene.
Not bad. You say Kunene, I say Kunene. Okay. Why is this place special? I mean, it looks special, clearly. Tell us.
The Kunene River is on the northern border of Namibia with Angola, and it's just one of the. It comes out of nowhere in a way. It's a spectacular. It's this contrast to everything that's around it, and I mean, the pictures there do it sort of justice, but other than being scenically stunning and beautiful, it's the one area in the region that you get a tribe called the Himba, and this tribe is very much untouched from Western civilization, and to me, that's why I go up to that area, to try and spend time with that tribe, because it really is, for me, it's about the people of Africa, and if people have an open mind to understand and learn different cultures, this is a culture that I marvel at every single time I'm with them, and the way they live, and it's a spectacular place. Then you have the Pupa Falls, which is once again, it's spectacular. It's another photographer's dream. So it's different, and this is what I love about Namibia. It's so diverse. From their complete proper deserts to Arab scrubland to big massive salt pans to these river systems to the Zambezi region, which is it's you could feel like you're in any sort of massive wetland that you're around the world. So the diversity is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely love that. This is Damaraland.
Damaraland, yeah.
Damaraland.
It's another section of Namibia, which is, to me, it's spectacular. And there's areas in Damaraland, and Damaraland is the area where it's probably best to go and try and track desert black rhino and desert elephants.
Yeah.
But that's, like, for example, that tree there, it's called a quiver tree, named because the San used to take the hollow branches of these trees and use them as to house their arrows. And it's just from a scenically photographic perspective, once again, it's amazing. But also Damaraland, what I enjoy about it, you got petrified forests, which tree trunks are over 300 million years old. There's an area called Trefelfontein, which is the most petroglyphs in the world. And these petroglyphs, so a petroglyph is basically a rock engraving, not a rock painting. So it's actually where people some of them are 1,000 to 10,000 year old petroglyphs that have been etched into the stone, and it has the most petroglyphs in the world. It's just another completely diverse area. So people ask, how long do you have to travel around Namibia? And I'm like, well, give me as much time as you can, because you got to see all these places. Damaraland is different from the Skeleton Coast, different to Sossusvlei, different to Etosha, different to the Zambezi region. It's a very special place.
What's becoming increasingly apparent to me is, I've seen in the past with a number of tour operators and people considering, I'm going to go to Southern Africa, so I'm going to tour around and try and drop into as many different countries and national parks as I possibly can. And I'm starting to get the feeling that that's really not really the ideal way to go. I think to get a sort of a sample maybe, but from what I can see here, you could easily spend a good, full and diverse and different 2 weeks in Namibia, arguably 3 weeks or more, to mix Namibia with another destination. I feel like that would be kind of rushed. What do you think?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And a lot of people, Namibia is one of probably the safest countries in Africa, other than South Africa, to drive yourself around, and it's a fantastic self-drive destination. But the distances are massive. And I mean, if you just remember that map according to Europe, it's huge. So you do need a long time if you're going to drive. So for me, flying around is probably going to be the easiest, quickest way to get from point A to B to C. But sometimes it's don't even throw in another country. Go there purely for Namibia, and experience Namibia for what Namibia is.
Yeah, I think that personally, I think that you have to combine flying and driving, because you want to taste the dirt.
Yeah,
you want to feel that sand. It's extraordinary. And of course, you want to see it from the air, because it is scenically so different see it from up above.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest probably highlights for me is flying over the Skeleton Coast. And if you're going to do any flying in Namibia, and you're going to choose to do that that Skeleton Coast fly, because it's mind blowing having a look at the shipwrecks that are along the coast, to see the sand dunes just stretching into the horizon to the east, and you got the Atlantic coastline that's below you as well. So yeah, I mean there's a picture of just one portion of it. I mean the Skeleton Coast 500 kilometers long.
I was going to say it's huge, right?
It's massive. So you're never going to fly over the entire part of it, and just if you can fly over a small amount of it, that to me is it's just look at that. I mean those contrasts are just spectacular.
Incredible.
So yeah, for me, flying over the Skeleton Coast is definitely a flight I would recommend everyone do.
Why is it called the Skeleton Coast? It sounds a little bit sinister.
It's quite interesting because a lot of people think it's to do with all the shipwrecks, and there are over 1,000 shipwrecks along that coastline, but it's got nothing to do with the shipwrecks at all. Namibia was quite a large whaling what do you call it? There was a lot of whaling that used to happen in Namibia, and it's actually from all the bones of the dead whales, sadly, as well as seals. Some of the world's largest seal colonies are found along that coastline. So it's got to do with primarily the whale bones and the seals. And then I think people just threw in the skeletal remains of the ships and the shipwrecks. And also a lot of sailors have lost their lives being shipwrecked, and then they get caught against that sort of massive Namib desert and they die. So it's a combination, but primarily got to do with the whaling. Yeah.
It looks an incredible, an incredible piece of coast. And like you say, the contrasts are just absolutely huge. This was just some general sort of photographs, but this is a lion on the Skeleton Coast, and you were talking before, both of you, about how certain creatures have had to sort of adapt in Namibia. So are these kind of, would these be desert lions then? And what do they feed off?
Well, I wouldn't say they're desert lions because they're African lions. They have adapted over time and evolved over time. So for example, if you take a lion, let's say in the Okavango Delta or in the Kruger National Park, and you compare the paw print compared to a lion in the Kalahari or in the Namib, the Namib lions and the Kalahari lions' paw prints are actually, their paws are much larger. So think about a snowshoe when you're walking on snow, just to increase that surface area. It helps them. So there's small little adaptations like that they've evolved over time. But it's a pride of lions, and there are quite a few different prides in that whole area that they've adapted to living in those conditions. And they will hunt the oryx, they will hunt giraffe, smaller animals. They'll hunt seals that are on the seal colonies. They'll scavenge. So a lot of brown hyena and jackals will hunt and kill, and the lions will scavenge off that. So it is amazing how they do survive out there. I mean, if you think lions can go without drinking actual water for 5 to 6, 7 months at a time, purely getting their moisture from the kills that they eat.
No.
So just from the moisture in that kill, that will sustain them. So you can find Kalahari lions or Namib lions that will go, as I said, 7, 8, 9 months at times without drinking a single drop of water. So animals have adopted.
That's blown my mind.
Adapted, sorry. Yeah.
That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, really, who knew? I mean, that fact, I'm taking that with me. I'm taking that to the pub this evening, I can tell you. Absolutely love that. This is one of the cheetahs again. Another sort of fact that we heard was, if this is correct, that Namibia has one of the largest populations of free-roaming cheetah as well.
That's right.
That's right as well.
That's right. They estimate there's between 2,500 to 3,000 free-roaming cheetah in Namibia.
Wow, incredible! So another great opportunity, I guess, to see these guys at work. Remind for any of our listeners and viewers the speed of these creatures, because they're the fastest creatures in the world, right?
It's the fastest land mammal. And yeah, I always get very careful how I answer this, because if you had to put them in a flat out sprint with no obstacles in their way whatsoever, so put them on an athletics track, for example, you'd probably find them reach 105, pushing 110 kilometers an hour. But in reality, in the wild, when they're chasing something, you probably find they're hitting 85, 90 kilometers an hour, all conditions being good, which is still exceptionally fast. It's something that you have to see. Yeah, it's something that you have to see to believe. It really is. And the sad thing for me is when you watch wildlife documentaries, 9 out of 10 times they slow the cheetah running down. They slow it down. They put into slow-mo. I'm like, you've got to see this go in real life, because it literally takes your breath away.
Yeah, I bet it does. I suppose the hard part as well on the wildlife programs is you never get to see, you don't get the full sense of vision because you've only got the camera width. So you don't usually get to see it, with the backdrop so that you can really gauge the speed as well. It's probably another one of those wildlife experiences that you literally have to see in the flesh to really appreciate it, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there quite a lot of zebra there? I said to you at the beginning, just for our viewers, I just picked this photograph because I just thought it was beautiful. No other reason. There's no great hidden depths to that. But are there quite a few zebras to be seen in Namibia as well?
They're scattered around. I won't say there's a lot, but in certain areas you do get to find them. You also get to find a very special subspecies of zebra called the Hartmann's mountain zebra. As it says mountain, they literally live on top of mountains. So anywhere where there's a high rise or an elevated piece of ground, you're going to find them. So there are, and we haven't really spoken much about Etosha, and I don't want to put Etosha down. It is a phenomenal spot. It's a massive salt pan, and they do have quite a fair, if I can say, a healthy population of zebra, as well as many other species of animals that are there. So yeah, it is a spectacular photograph. That I know why you chose it.
Yeah, well, it's the sky on that one.
Exactly.
It's about the zebras, but it's also about the skies, which again we've been talking about quite a lot.
I think the sky is one of the top things about Namibia.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
Day and night.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, any of the photographs that I've been seeing, like you say, day or night, my eyes are drawn to the sky as much as they are the incredible landscapes.
Yeah, the sunsets are spectacular.
Yeah, I'm getting that as well. You see, there's a few sunset ones here as well. I was having the time of my life looking through these photographs, I can tell you. And that's another sunset one in the Kalahari.
Typical...
And Jade, this is something that I mean, for me personally, in the low season, when the rains come and in certain parts of Namibia, when you get these massive, huge thunderstorms, I mean, to have a thunderstorm and to watch it in this massively open, big sky country, and people in Montana in the States say they've got big sky country. I'm like, you haven't been to Namibia yet. Excuse me. And it's to watch these thunderstorms roll in and then roll out, and the light that comes after that is you almost. I mean, I find myself putting my camera down half the time because I want to take it in. It truly is mind blowing. And
the smell of the earth when that happens.
Yeah,
it's a special smell.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Guys, I think we are we're over our time, unfortunately. We knew at the beginning, again, just for our viewers and listeners to the podcast and to the series, we knew at the beginning when we spoke, the three of us, that we were never going to be able to really fit everything in, as we weren't with Botswana or South Africa, to be fair, to fit everything into 1 hour. It's incredibly hard to do these wonderful destinations justice in an hour. But hopefully our viewers and our listeners will agree that we've had a good go. I think it's fair to say we've done our very best, and we've shown a little bit of an overview as to what this incredible destination has to offer. So I just want to thank both yourself, Roo, and yourself, Warren, for being our wonderful guests yet again, and indeed hosts this week. Have you enjoyed talking through Namibia? Did you enjoy it, Roo?
Yes, I loved it. I was a little bit nervous at the beginning, but you made me feel very at ease. So thank
Oh,
you.
good. Well, we've got friendly audiences, and what we're talking about is just it's just so fascinating, isn't it? And it's such a wonderful destination, and it's clear to me as well that you're both incredibly passionate about Namibia as well, and it's been a lot of fun. Final words from you, Warren?
Well, now that we've done the intro, can we go into the main section?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's what it's like, isn't it? It's it feels like
it's
a couple of
amazing.
parts of Namibia that we haven't even touched.
It is amazing how time has flown past, because it's a spectacular country, and I do love it. And I just think, when people do look at Africa and travel to Africa, they need to really consider Namibia as a destination. And it's got so much to offer, and it's just a place that a lot of people, they just don't take it seriously enough, I think. Or there's people out there that it's not even on their radar, and hopefully now this is on their radar, and they can chat to us or chat to you, or let us know. I'm always here. I'm an open. I always like to say my door's open, so if people have questions, by means, anytime. I love talking about it.
Careful what you wish for, Warren.
I know.
You might get inundated now. Super stuff. Well, listen, thank you both so much once again for your expertise and your passion and your knowledge this week in talking through Namibia. Greatly appreciated as always. Thanks to Africa Rome, of course, in particular, for your support, Rue. Really, really appreciated. And we don't take it for granted at all. Next week, we are off to, we're going to Zimbabwe, aren't we?
We are.
Give us a little bit of a flavour for what we can expect in Zimbabwe when we talk about Zimbabwe next week.
If I had to, whenever I think of Zimbabwe, the first thing I ever think about are the people. For me, it's probably the most friendliest people I've ever come across in Africa. Really? But over and above that, I mean, it's steeped in history. It's got, once again, diversity from the eastern part of Zimbabwe all the way through to the west and the north, where Victoria Falls are. It's got one of the largest man-made lakes in the world. It's another wild experience. It's down lower Zambezi, you got a place called Mana Pools. It's an area that, once again, if people want to immerse themselves in raw wildlife, and now we're getting back to actual safari, if I want to put in that context, to wildlife, this is a destination, and unfortunately Zimbabwe has received a lot of bad press in probably the last 10-15 years even. But people mustn't look at that and think that's not a way to go. It's got some spectacular places to visit, and I really do hope we do it justice. I love going to Zimbabwe. It's as I said, I love the people. They to me is what makes it for me.
So there you have it. Huge thanks again to Warren and Rue for sharing their insights with us this week, as well as our friends at Africa Rome, without whose support this mini-series would not be possible. Please do visit our lowseasontraveller.com website to learn all about the Low Season Africa series, as well as seeing our latest content and some amazing competition prizes, which we'll be giving away throughout the summer. Also, if you get a chance, do visit the africarome.com website to learn more about the incredible experiences they offer for guests. You'll be in safe hands. In the next episode, as you heard from Warren, we stay in Africa as we head across to Zimbabwe, where Warren tells us that we'll find the world's friendliest people. If you haven't already done so, please do like and follow the Low Season Traveller pages on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter to see all of our latest content and be in with a chance to win stays in top 5-star luxury properties. We've currently got a great competition running to win a luxury break in Japan. Finally, join us next Thursday when we speak to explorer, geographer and acclaimed travel writer Nick Middleton, who's travelled to the world's hottest, driest, coldest and wettest inhabited places to learn what life is like at the extremes. We'll be speaking to Nick about his travels, and Nick will be taking your questions during the show. And we'll also be giving away signed copies of Nick's books, Going to Extremes and Surviving the Extremes. Should be a really fascinating programme. And that's our podcast for the week. Thanks as always for your company. Have a great week. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep your travel dreams alive, and don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and social networks. And remember, now more than ever, travel is better without the crowds.